If Niccolo Machiavelli were alive in 2026, he wouldn't be writing books or chasing likes. He would be running empires from the shadows, operating in a silence so profound it would feel like gravity. He wouldn't tweet. He wouldn't post. He would be the invisible architect of reality, pulling strings so subtle you'd swear it was destiny. In an era pathologically addicted to visibility, Machiavelli would dominate through total invisibility. Today, I am going to reveal exactly how he would do it. We aren't looking at dusty quotes. We are looking at doctrine. These are 21 psychological rules for absolute control, reconstructed for the modern world. Most men judge more by the eye than by the hand. Control the perception, and you control the person. Rule 1. Force them to underestimate you. Machiavelli understood that power is most dangerous when it is undetected. Today, everyone is in a frantic rush to prove their worth, to flash their credentials, and to shout that they are the smartest person in the room. But Machiavelli wouldn't walk in loud. He'd be the last to enter and the first to observe. He would speak only when the silence becomes uncomfortable, saying exactly what no one else dared to. By appearing harmless or even small, you disarm the ego of your enemies. When people believe you pose no threat, they stop guarding their secrets. They expose their jugular, and that is exactly when you strike from a position they never saw coming. Rule 2. Charm is far more lethal than truth. In our hyper-connected, image-obsessed society, truth doesn't travel. Perception does. Machiavelli knew that everyone sees what you appear to be, but almost no one experiences who you truly are. He wouldn't waste a second proving his integrity. Instead, he would spend every waking hour building an illusion. He'd smile in the boardroom while planting seeds of misdirection. He'd charm his rivals, feeding them a false sense of security until they were paralyzed by their own confidence. The goal isn't to be good, it's to be believed as good. Do not correct the way people see you. Exploit it. Let them crown you as their hero while you quietly rewrite the ending of their story. Rule 3. Cultivate ambiguity as a strategic weapon. Most people are desperate to be understood. They explain, they justify, and they clarify until they are transparent. Machiavelli would do the exact opposite. He would leave people guessing, intentionally. One day he'd be cold and calculating, the next, unexpectedly generous. He wouldn't be confused, he would be confusing. Confusion creates a psychological vacuum that breeds obsession. When people cannot define you, they study you. They analyze your every word and overinterpret your silences. They begin to orbit your ambiguity, trying to solve a puzzle they cannot control. You aren't just a person to them anymore. You become a fixation. As Machiavelli knew, the people you control the most are the ones who think about you the most. Stop filling every silence. Speak in riddles. Smile when they ask questions you refuse to answer. Curiosity isn't just interest. It is gravitational pull. Rule 4. Control the broadcast, but hide the factory. In a world where every move is live-streamed, Machiavelli would operate in the shadows. Today, everyone is busy building a personal brand, sharing progress, and showing their receipts. But the moment people see how you move, they start preparing counter-moves. They form alliances, build narratives, and plant traps in your path. Machiavelli's strategy would be simple. Keep your output public, but keep your input strictly private. He would appear entirely transparent while hiding his true mechanics. A prince must always be prepared to act against loyalty, against charity, and against humanity to preserve the state. In modern terms, appear noble but move ruthlessly. Never reveal your strategies or explain your systems. Let the world think you are resting, or perhaps even slow, then pass them by with a speed they never prepared for. Control the feed, but guard the factory. Rule 5. Build a perfect mask, then let it fracture. Machiavelli understood a truth that every modern manipulator uses. Perfection is forgettable, but flaws are addictive. To dominate, you must first build a mask of being poised, intelligent, and utterly calm. But once the foundation is set, let it crack, just once. Reveal a controlled imperfection, a sharp word, a calculated moment of vulnerability, or a sudden burst of intensity that suggests you are far deeper than they realized. Why? Because people don't obsess over what they already understand. They obsess over what feels just out of reach. Give them 90% of the story, then go silent. They will chase that remaining 10% for years. A wise ruler cultivates an appearance of virtue while remaining ready to act contrary to it. Be the light, then flash the darkness. Let them glimpse the abyss behind the curtain, then close it. They won't just remember the mask. They will be haunted by what they saw when it slipped. Rule 6. Always say less than necessary. When people talk too much, they are inadvertently broadcasting their weaknesses. They reveal their desperate need for validation, their fear of being misunderstood, and their emotional dependency on clarity. But the one who speaks with surgical precision and stops before explaining too much dominates the tempo of the room. Machiavelli didn't speak to be liked. He spoke to create distance. He used words like blades, not blankets. In a negotiation or a moment of high tension, he would deliver one sentence, perhaps two, and then let the silence do the heavy lifting. That silence is where the fear begins to take root. Why? Because in the absence of information, people project their own insecurities. They start wondering, what does he know that I don't? Why isn't he reacting? What is his next move? You've said nothing, yet they've already written an entire novel in their heads, casting you as the villain they can't outmaneuver. In the game of power, say exactly enough to control the rhythm, then stop. Let them lean in. Let them sweat. Real mystery is forged in the empty space between words. Rule 7. Blur the line between threat and ally. In today's world, people are obsessed with categorization. They want to know exactly where everyone stands, who is a friend, who is an enemy, and who is safe. Machiavelli would never grant them that luxury of certainty. He would sit with his enemies at dinner, publicly defend the very rivals he privately planned to remove, and offer compliments to those he intended to replace. Why? Because when people perceive you as a threat, they prepare for war. But when they perceive you as neutral, they sleep. And the most effective time to move is when the world is snoring. You must be both the fox and the lion to recognize the traps, and the lion to frighten the wolves. You compliment your enemy's idea just moments before you outmaneuver it. You agree with the critic right before you silence their influence. Appear warm, appear supportive, and remain utterly disarming until the very second you strike. By the time they realize you are a threat, the game is already over. Rule 8. Make them feel safe right before you seize power. The most efficient way to remove an obstacle is not through a frontal assault, but through the illusion of alignment. You don't fight them. You make them believe you are their greatest asset. Machiavelli would study your patterns, mimic your language, and praise your vision while subtly disagreeing just enough to seem authentic. He would never make you feel like you were losing ground. He would make you feel as if you were the one guiding him. This is the ultimate deception. Once an individual feels safe, they lower their guard. They stop looking for the knife. Once they truly trust you, you act decisively, quickly, and cleanly. By the time the sting of betrayal registers, you are already sitting in the seat they used to occupy. Men are so simple and so inclined to follow their immediate needs that a master deceiver will never lack victims. Tell them what they need to hear, show them what they crave to see, and take what they never thought you'd touch. All while maintaining a perfect, reassuring smile. Rule 9. Make them dependent, then suddenly withdraw. If Machiavelli wanted to dominate a person, he wouldn't use threats or force. Instead, he would offer help in ways that slowly, almost invisibly, created a state of total reliance. He would solve the problems no one else could, provide a stability they hadn't earned, and become an irreplaceable pillar in their lives, all without ever asking for a shred of recognition. Then, at the height of their reliance, he would leave. Not with an emotional outburst or a dramatic exit, but with a cold, calculated withdrawal. Why? Because nothing shatters a person faster than the sudden absence of something they've grown addicted to. As he observed, men are kept honest only by necessity. Machiavelli would become your necessary illusion, the person you convinced yourself you didn't need until you were left paralyzed by their absence. By creating a void, you don't just win, you make them hate how much they need you. Rule 10. Weaponize the favor to create psychological chains. Most people offer assistance to be liked or respected. Machiavelli would offer help to create leverage. When he gave you something, he wouldn't let the memory of it fade. He wouldn't collect the debt with physical force. He would collect it with his mere presence. He understood that a favor, when handled with patience, becomes a psychological chain. You offer a shortcut, a solution, or an unfair advantage, and then you pull back slightly. You don't ask for a return. You simply let the imbalance ache in their mind until they begin paying you back in loyalty, information, or submission. If they happen to forget their debt, you remind them with a surgical subtlety, "Remember that time I stepped in?" Just enough to make them realize you own a significant piece of their pride. Rule 11. Manufacture loyalty through shared complicity. People often believe loyalty is earned through kindness, but Machiavelli knew better. The strongest bond is not built on admiration, it is built on compromise. To make someone truly loyal, you must allow them to betray others for your benefit. You don't force the betrayal. You simply leave the door slightly ajar. Let them tell you a secret they shouldn't. Let them bend a small rule in your favor. Let them speak ill of a mutual friend to win your approval. Once they walk through that door, they are no longer just an ally, they are an accomplice. People protect what they have compromised themselves for. The more they invest in your cause through these small betrayals, the less they can afford to lose you. This is how Machiavelli would build his inner circle, not through charisma, but through the dark art of entanglement. Rule 12. Dismantle alliances from the inside out. Machiavelli didn't just outmaneuver individuals, he dismantled entire power structures, but he rarely used a direct assault. He preferred erosion over explosion. Instead of attacking a group from the outside, he would infiltrate it and plant the seeds of internal decay. He who causes another to become powerful ruins himself. Machiavelli would identify the strongest bond in a network and infect it with a carefully calculated poison: suspicion. A whispered observation here, a pointed question there. Have you noticed how she never really defends you when it matters? Or, I heard a rumor he's looking for your replacement. You don't need to destroy the alliance yourself. You simply provide the tools for them to destroy each other. Once trust is fractured within a group, the entire structure collapses under its own weight without you ever having to strike a single blow. Rule 13. Mirror their insecurities back at them gently. If you want someone to obey you without realizing they are being led, you must make them feel seen, but only in ways that validate their deepest self-doubts. Machiavelli wouldn't use insults or overt criticism, those trigger defenses. Instead, he would use soft, perfectly timed insights that anchor him as their only source of truth. He'd say things like, "You're incredibly talented, especially for someone who isn't used to this kind of pressure." Or, "I admire how you keep going, even when others don't take your ideas seriously." These statements are psychological hooks. They trigger a quiet agreement with their internal pain. Once you have validated their insecurity, they will attach themselves to you. They begin to move under your emotional gravity, deferring to your judgment, because they believe you are the only one who truly understands the real them. Insecurities are doors that open from the inside. Once you're in, you own the room. Rule 14. Never be the one holding the knife. In every betrayal, every firing, and every ruthless removal, Machiavelli had one golden rule: maintain the illusion of clean hands. He would orchestrate the outcome, whisper the strategy, and influence the final decision. But he would never be the one in the spotlight when the blade fell. If someone needed to be cut off, he'd make it appear as though their own lack of loyalty was the cause. If a rival needed to be removed, he'd let them self-destruct through a series of subtle provocations. Why? Because the executioner is hated, but the orchestrator remains untouched. If you are seen as the source of pain, you gain enemies. But if you position yourself as the inevitable alternative, or the steady hand that remains after the chaos, you gain followers. This is the Machiavellian masterpiece. You control everyone, you decide everything, and yet, no one can prove you were even in the room. Even those who suspect you will find themselves following you, simply because you are the only one left standing. Rule 15. Weaponize silence to force total revelation. In any room, the most powerful person is rarely the loudest. It is the one who says nothing while watching everything. Machiavelli would look at today's world, overflowing with podcasts, social media rants, and digital noise, and he would win by becoming the one person who does not broadcast. Silence is not just passivity. It is a vacuum that people feel a desperate psychological need to fill. Here is how he would use it. If someone insults you, say nothing. If they ask for your opinion, smile and let the silence stretch until it becomes uncomfortable. Someone tries to trigger an emotional reaction. Simply blink, stay quiet, and offer no feedback. That void forces others to keep talking, and the more they talk, the more they reveal their doubts, their hidden intentions, and their fatal weak spots. You don't need to interrogate anyone. They will hand you the keys to their own downfall just to escape the pressure of your silence. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception, and silence is deception's most elegant form. Rule 16. Use unpredictability to paralyze countermoves. Machiavelli would never be erratic, but he would be intentionally unreliable at critical moments. Why? Because predictability is a leash that others use to control you. If your rivals know exactly when you'll reply, They control the tempo of the conversation. If they know how you react under stress, they will plan the exact provocation to break you. If they know you'll always take the high road, they will walk all over it without fear. But if you are sometimes forgiving and sometimes disappear, if you are sometimes intense and sometimes chillingly distant, they will fear you. Not because you are aggressive, but because you are unreadable. Machiavelli knew that men are driven by two principal impulses, love or fear. But fear is born from uncertainty. The person they cannot predict is the person they cannot prepare for. By breaking your own patterns, you don't just protect yourself. You build a psychological cage around your enemies where they are too afraid to move for fear of what you might do. Rule 17. Make your presence felt even in your absence. To achieve true psychological dominance, you don't need to always be physically present. You need to ensure that your impact is felt even when you are miles away. This is the art of psychological branding, not based on content, but on the surgical precision of your character. You become the standard, the reference point, and the shadow in every conversation. People begin to second-guess their choices because they wonder how you would have judged them. They find it hard to celebrate their wins because they're busy wondering if you would have found a flaw in their strategy. They don't trust others fully because they remember how much sharper your intuition was. You imprint your presence by how you behave when you are in the room, measured, observant, and controlled. Machiavelli wouldn't need to constantly manage people. He would create such a powerful, haunting memory of his standards that even in his absence, everyone would still be playing by his rules. You don't want to be missed. You want to be reckoned with. Rule 18. Never resort to threats. Let their own fear do the work. Overt threats are a sign of weakness. They trigger immediate resistance and force your enemy to build their defenses. Machiavelli never needed to say, "I will destroy you." He simply allowed others to wonder if he might. That lingering uncertainty, that psychological pressure, is far more corrosive than any verbal warning. In today's world, this is how you apply it. You don't tell someone you've discovered their lie. You simply pause, look them in the eye, and watch them squirm in the silence. You don't announce that you're going to ruin their reputation. You make one cryptic phone call in their presence, and then say nothing else. Fear based on the imagination is infinitely more potent than fear based on information. Once a person begins to fear what you might do, they start working to earn your approval just to avoid finding out the truth. Let their own mind become your most effective torture chamber. Rule 19. Delay your retaliation until it becomes devastating. Machiavelli was a master of the long game. He didn't believe in the impulsive satisfaction of immediate revenge. He believed in watching, waiting, and letting the offense rot until the perfect moment for a surgical strike arrived. As he famously noted, injuries should be inflicted all at once, so that their ill savor may be less. This means when someone wrongs you, you do not react with anger. You study them. You let them relax. You let them believe, comfortably, that they have gotten away with it. And then, one day, when they are at their most vulnerable and least prepared, you move with absolute crushing force. Revenge is not about an emotional outburst. It is about total control. When you react instantly, you allow the other person to set the tempo. But when you delay, they live in a state of permanent paranoia. They can't enjoy their small victories because they are too busy fearing every shadow, wondering when the other shoe will finally drop. Rule 20. Become a system, not just a man. To truly dominate, you must transcend being a mere individual whom people can like or dislike. You must become a structure. Machiavelli never sought popularity. He sought to be a necessity. The modern move is to stop being a name and start being an indispensable network, an idea, or a standard embedded in how everyone else operates. You train others to think through your lens. You make yourself the gatekeeper of systems that no one else fully understands. You embed your influence into the very fabric of the decision-making process. If removing you means the entire infrastructure collapses, then you are truly safe. This is how legacies are forged. You aren't just feared while you are in the room. You are remembered in systems that cannot be deleted. When your influence is woven into the machine itself, you have achieved more than just influence. You have achieved permanent psychological control. Rule 21. Reach the final form of power. Become a haunting presence. The ultimate peak of influence isn't being recognized. It is being feared in the abstract. Machiavelli's final strategy for the modern age would be to become the person people reference only indirectly. You know the type. Don't end up like him, or you remember what happened the last time that move was played. People wouldn't dare speak your name directly, because even naming you feels like invoking a force far bigger and more volatile than they are prepared to handle. You don't trend on a timeline. You linger in the subconscious of your rivals. You don't win arguments. You change the very atmosphere of the room simply by existing within it. You become the unspoken consensus, the one they fear bringing up because everyone else already understands the consequences. This is the final form of dominance, when your reputation does the work so you don't have to. You aren't looking for respect. You have positioned yourself so that they can't even breathe without acknowledging your shadow. The Machiavellian conclusion. If Niccolò Machiavelli were walking among us today, he wouldn't be shouting for attention on a stage or desperately hunting for followers online. He would be the invisible architect hidden deep within the power structures, shaping global narratives behind a mask of smiles and calculated silence. He would be that persistent, cold voice in the back of your head that whispers, "Do not respond. Do not reveal. Let them speak first." He understood a truth that the modern world has forgotten in its race for likes. True power is a ghost. It is the man behind the curtain, the hand that never shakes, and the mind that never stops calculating. He would tell you to stop chasing the hollow high of fame and start building a fortress of mystery. Don't seek to be seen, seek to be essential. Don't seek to be understood. Seek to be reckoned with, because in the end, the world doesn't belong to the loudest voice in the room. It belongs to the one who controls the room without ever raising their voice. That is how you win. Not with noise, not with fame, but with a legacy so deeply embedded in the system that it becomes impossible to delete.